Welcome to David Alexander Maths Tuition. This is chapter 10F on equations and identities. So for solving the range 0 to 360, 16 cos squared x equals 1. So it seems straightforward enough to begin with. So the cos squared x is 1 over 16. Okay, so if cos squared x, now if you're a bit confused here, remember that means the cos of x squared equals 1 over 16. So if cos squared x is 1/16, that means the cos of x equals 1/4, right? Now this is a mistake a lot of people will make, and that is forgetting that when you're square rooting there is both a positive and a negative root, because -1/4 times -1/4 is also 1/16. So what we need to do here is we're going to do two things. So x is the inverse cos of 0.25, and also x is the inverse cos of minus 0.25. So let's start off with plus 0.25. So 0.25 shift cos answer we are getting, and again I'm just going to round that to 76. The next answer is 360 minus that, which is 284, and the next solution will be 76 plus 360, and that takes us out of range. So we're only going to get only getting two solutions for the positive 0.25. And what about the minus 0.25? If I inverse cos that, I'm getting 104, and 360 minus that, which is 360 minus 104, which is 256. Again, if I add 360 to 104, I'm definitely going to be beyond 360. So we need to be thinking about, well, what does cos squared x even look like? Well, we know that cos of x looks like that. So if this is cos of x, what is cos squared x? Well, remember, when you square something, anything negative will be made positive. So cos squared x looks like this between 0 and 360. So this is cos of x all squared, or cos squared x. So if I'm getting two solutions between 360, we know that cos squared, we were looking for where's it equal to 1/16. For the cos of x, we're only going to get two solutions, but for cos squared x, we are getting double, because those two negative ones have now been made positive. So we're getting 1, 2, 3, 4 solutions. So there they are: 76, 104, 284, and 256. Okay, again, between 0 and 360, 4 sine squared x minus 1 is 0. So I would say that 4 sine squared x equals positive 1. So sine squared x is 1 over 4. So therefore sine of x is the square root of 1 over 4, so 1/2, but plus or minus a half. So x is the inverse sine of 0.5, and x is also the inverse sine of minus 0.5. Okay, so when I do a shift sine of 0.5, I'm getting 30. My next solution is 180 minus 30, which is 150 degrees. My next solution, so I've got my first pair. For the next pair, I'm going to add 360, but that will definitely take me beyond the range. Let's have a look at this one. So the inverse sine of minus 0.5, my first solution is minus 30. So my next one is 180, take away minus 30, which is 210. And so this one is out of range. Now if I add 360 to negative 30, I'm going to get 330, which is within range. And if I add 360 to 210, that will take me out of the range. So there are my solutions. So 30 degrees, 150, 210, and 330 degrees. So here we're solving in the range 0 to 360, which is kind of nice. That's always the preferred range, by the way. But we've got a horrible equation: 4 sine squared x plus 3 sine x equals 0. So if you had a 4x squared plus 3x equals 0, you could factorise and then solve it from there. So this is very similar. So what we've got in each term is a sine of x. So if I divide both terms by a sine x, I'm going to get sine x on the outside of the bracket, and then 4 sine squared x divided by sine x will be 4 sine x plus 3 equals 0. Okay, so we've got two factors that equal 0, so therefore the sine of x can equal 0, and for sine of x equals negative 3. Okay, so if the sine of x equals 0, actually this one we can just work out from our sketch. So where is the sine of x 0? Well, it's 0 there, there and there, so that's 0 degrees, 180 degrees and 360 degrees. But it can't be 0 or 360, it can only be the 180 because it has to be strictly greater than and strictly less than 0 and 360. So from here we're getting x equals 180 degrees, that's one solution. So if 4 sine x is negative 3, then the sine of x is minus 3/4. So therefore x is the inverse sine of minus 3/4. So shift sine minus 3 divided by 4, we are getting, let's just call that minus 49. So there's my first solution. So for the next solution, I need to do 180 minus this. So 180 minus 49, so 180 plus 49, so that is 229. So this is out of range, but maybe the next one is in range. So all I need to do, remember of course sine repeats every 360, is add 360 to negative 49, or 360 minus 49. We're getting 311, which is within range. But hopefully you know not to bother adding 360 to 229 because that would definitely take us out of range. So we're getting three solutions here. We're getting 180 degrees, 229 degrees and 311 degrees. Okay, so here's another example. Here we've got something that looks like an x squared plus 3x minus 10, which we know that we could factorise to x plus 5, x minus 2. So it's going to be exactly the same here. Here it's going to be tan x plus 5, tan x minus 2 equals 0. So let's think about that. Tan x times tan x is tan x squared, which is tan squared x. So therefore that means that tan x is negative 5 and the tan of x is positive 2. So therefore x is the inverse tan of negative 5, which is minus 78 degrees. Let's just add 180 to it, so that's 101 plus another 180, 281 plus another 180. That takes me beyond the 360 limit, and we can get rid of the minus 78 because that's less than 0. Okay, let's do where the tan of x is 2, then x is the inverse tan of 2, so that is 63 degrees. The next one is 63 plus 180, which is 63 plus 180 is of course 243 degrees. And if I add another 180 onto 243, I'm getting 423, which is out of range. So I'm getting four solutions: 63, 101, 243 and 281. Okay, so this one looks a bit horrible, and that's because we have got some sine squareds and some cos squareds. So we need to be thinking, what can we do? Well, we know that sine squared x plus cos squared x is always equal to 1. So therefore I can turn these cos squareds into sine squareds, or actually I could turn the sine squareds into cos squareds, but I'm not going to do that. It doesn't matter which you do, by the way. So I'm just going to rearrange this. If sine squared plus cos squared equals 1, then cos squared x is 1 minus sine squared x. So 3 cos squared x is going to be 3 lots of 1 minus sine squared x, so 3 minus 3 sine squared x. So we've got 7 sine squared x equals 3 minus 3 sine squared x. So I'm going to add the 3 sine squared x to both sides. And now divide through by 10. So therefore the sine of x is plus, or remember minus, the square root of 0.3. Okay, so x is, let's just use the plus root 0.3. So the square root of 0.3, let's just inverse sine that. We are getting x is 33. The next value is going to be 180 minus 33, which is 147. And the next value is going to be, or the next pair will be these two values plus 360, which will take me out of range. Let's now consider the negative square root of 0.3. So minus the square root of 0.3 is whatever, and let's just shift sign that. So I'm getting minus 33. So I need to subtract that from 180, so I'm getting 213. And my next value is going to be minus 33 plus 360. So 360 minus 33, in other words, is 327. The fourth one will be 213 plus 360, which takes me out of range. The minus 33 is outside of the limits as well. So there we have four solutions: 33 degrees, 147 degrees, 213 and 327 degrees.